Awesome. Okay, so today we are going to talk a little bit about wireless funding, wireless technologies, and where the federal government is funding those technologies, and how to align your company in order to win federal funding. So, just a quick overview. Eagle Point Funding is a sister company to FreeMind. Um, and so FreeMind started in 1999. They started in the healthcare field almost exclusively. And the reason for that is that not only in America, but also abroad, there's quite a few healthcare grants. But what they saw as they were developing and growing is that there is a huge kind of gap in defense and technology that needs to be filled, that the federal government is always looking for different applications. So they Eagle Point started 2 years ago, and yeah, and ever since it's been really good. So just a quick overview of the Fremont Group: over $1.5 billion in awards. They have over 500 active clients, and again, we have PhDs, people with master's degrees, all kinds of walks of life who are in-house professionals that focus on these grants. So to start talking about federal funding, the overall budget for research and development from the U.S. government is $161 billion. And then, as you see, the budget for private sector is $40 billion to $60 billion. And they're really trying to foster innovation through the private sector. Basically, the whole SBIR, which is Small Business Innovation and Research, was started in 1982 as a way to stimulate the economy. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's been hugely successful, and the government uses it as one of their tools to really, A, find new technologies that has government applications, and B, find new technologies that can stimulate the economy. So all federal fund, most federal funding is non-dilutive, and I say most because there are broad agency agreements that are on the fringe, but we'll get to that when we get to the slide. But dilutive funding is funding when a VC or private equity firm buys in. So basically, they take shares or board member rights, or they have power within your company because you're beholden to them as an investor. Whereas non-dilutive funding, which is government funding, is you don't have to share equity. There's no interference. IP rights are maintained, and essentially what they want you to do is run your company the way you want to run your company. They're not trying to shake things up or change anything. Yes, if there is an application for that, they might ask you, hey, would you guys be willing to develop it for X, Y, and Z? But besides for that, they're focused on basically developing technology in a non-invasive manner. So there's many different industries for grants. As you see from this slide, there's 4 primary industries. But that being said, I'm going to send you the slide afterwards, but there's a whole other section for other topics. So essentially, well, the other topics allows basically pretty much any technology that's cutting edge. We call it deep tech. So any technology that's cutting edge, the government's really willing, the federal government's generally willing to hear it out and look for it. For example, one of the grants we'll talk about, which is the National Science Foundation, they have an entire focus category called other topics. So yeah, they're interested in wireless, they're interested in blockchain, they're interested in X, Y, and Z. But in addition, they understand that the amount that they don't know about is out there, and that there's a lot of technology out there that's not a simple, hey, fits into this category, and that's it, that's the perfect fit. But whereas technology can span across different fields and have different use cases. So motivation for federal investments, it's what we said before. There's an economic motivation and there's a need-based motivation. So seeking solutions to agency challenges is need-based. They need, let's say the Air Force needs a new augmented reality headset that they can use to help train their pilots. So what they're going to do is they're going to release, so seeking solutions for agency challenges, they're going to post an opportunity for R&D funding. they're going to find what's out there, because people are going to hopefully apply, and then based off of that, the companies that apply, they'll be making an investment. From there, they'll see how you perform, and then they'll have an opportunity to become a client. So there's essentially 3 phases after they after the first. I mean, there's 3 phases total to the investment side of that. That's very consistent with SBIRs. Federal procurement programs. So these are just a few. The DHS Silicon Valley Innovation, the Defense Innovation Unit, AFWERX is very notable because they have a fast. They're kind of pioneering the whole idea of fast funding within government funding, as opposed to waiting 6 to 8 months to get funded. AFWERX is challenging that with a mere 2 months. But the second type of federal investment, and this is what we'll call altruistic, it's seed money for private industry. So they're trying to grow and stimulate the economy. So as I said before, altruistic motives, improves quality of life, advanced technology, and job creation. And this is one of my favorite little statistics in this presentation. Basically, for every dollar that they invest into federal funding, they get $2.30 back out. So it's a 230% rate of return on their investment. So, and the way they get this is through taxes. So essentially, when your business grows, you hire more employees, you start doing business with other parts of the U.S. Of the U.S. economy. What happens is that they get tax money on every single one of those transactions. So it's really in their best interest. This is kind of a no-brainer from their perspective, that it's great to help fund these projects, especially if you vet them properly and they're successful. It's a benefit for everyone. And in addition to that, federal grants are viewed as a hallmark of quality. A research study from the Milken Institute, and this study is, just so you guys know, it's for bioscience and healthcare. But for every dollar of federal funding that was spent, down the line, the company received $8.38 compared to that. So essentially, what they're trying to say is that investors say, hey, if you're able to pass muster and see, hey, a guy from DC says, a PhD probably from DC says, hey, these guys have it, they have a technology that's worthwhile funding, usually private investors follow. And so this is a little bit what we were talking about before. SBIR, Small Business Innovation and Research, they only account for 3.2% of the federal funding that's being awarded. Small business technology transfer for a mere 0.4%, sorry. And the large lion's share is broad agency announcements. So to just jump in a little bit to small business innovation research grants, they have $3.5 billion awarded annually, and it's phased funding. So phase 1 is usually proof of concept, and anywhere, like for example, AFWERX is $50,000, and the NSF is $250,000 for phase 1. Phase 2 is the prototype stage. So they're saying, hey, you saw your proof of concept. Let's see what you have built since then. And for a few of the grants, you could jump directly to phase 2, just so you know. And that's usually from $750,000 to $5 million. And then phase 3 is commercialization assistance. And that is a little bit more complex. So it could be dollar to dollar for dollar matching in terms of funding. It can be just them becoming your client. It manifests in many different ways, and there's no real standard for each agency. And then broad agency announcements are, as they say, they're very broad. So usually these are not primarily for small business. So the SBIRs, Small Business Research and Innovation, or Innovation and Research, but broad agency announcements, broad. So anyone can apply. So you could be working with huge companies, but for that there is a reward. So it's 2 to 5 years of funding. So it's not just one lump sum. And the award ceilings run anywhere from 1 million to 65 million. And again, they cover every area of R&D, and even non-US based companies can apply to broad agency announcements. And for these research and development grants, you can basically they're willing to fund research and development primarily, but that can mean anything from salaries, subcontracts, instruments, materials, facilities, administration costs, and advisors. The 7% profit is the 7% that you usually can do anything you want with. So it's not solely, hey, 93% is solely for the research and various research and development, but 7% could be used for anything, anywhere from uh, salaries of non-research and non-R&D and anything along those lines. So a few of the wireless technology open topics we're going to look at today is the National Science Foundation, AFWERX, and the Department of Defense, as well as the Department of Energy. So the National Science Foundation, they are looking, this is their focus topic for wireless. If you guys want to go on their website, if you type in NSF SBIR after this, you will see the focus topic. There's even more of a description if you click in, but they're looking for wireless devices and components, wireless systems, and other wireless technologies. Again, so it's pretty broad based. The NSF is due on, the proposals are due on December 3rd. And phase one funding, again, is up to $250,000. AFWERX, they're not, so they were established in 2017, and they are not just, hey, a classic funding mechanism for the federal government. They're actually looking to be more involved, more hands-on, and change kind of the perception that a lot of people have when it comes to federal funding. So they have pitch days, hackathons, challenges, and what we'll get to, open topic SBIR program. So the open topic is basically an open call to any technologies. Although they do have focus areas, they're focusing on basically, they're looking for any technology that could potentially be relevant. So they also kind of have an other topics kind of area as well. And they allow for a skip to phase two, as well as a classical phase one, phase two, phase three. In addition to that, one of the big upsides of AFWERX is not necessarily their funding amounts, because when it comes to their funding amounts, they're not the biggest out of all the other federal agencies. But what is significant is their fast funding, as well as their government contracts that are follow along. Because if you have a memorandum of understanding from an Air Force stakeholder, what ends up happening is that once you pass to phase three, that basically what a memorandum of understanding is that an Air Force stakeholder says, hey, this tech is great and we're interested once it's developed in using it. So phase three, a lot of the time, is having them as a client, which is really a huge benefit. And again, phase one is 50,000, phase two could be anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million, and then a follow-on contract for AFWERX. The DoD SBIR it's basically 12 different agencies that are participating together. So there's 148 different topics because, again, the DoD is gigantic and the agencies have very various needs. And again, they vary in the funding amount, and they also vary in what they're looking for. So there's quite a bit there. Again, for specific kind of tech topics, we can schedule a call and talk a little bit more and get a little bit more granular. And lastly, the Department of Energy. The topics were released are going to be released on November 9th, and the applications are due on February 22nd of 2021. Phase one is up to 250,000, and phase two is, again, 1.6 million. With all of these, they are, again, as I said before, I can't stress this enough, they're looking for novel tech. So if anyone on the call has something that is viable, basically the ideal is to apply and kind of put your name into the ring, because what happens is a lot of people aren't aware of these opportunities, and what ends up happening is that people kind of miss the boat, which is unfortunate because it's in all parties' interest. Non-dilutive funding is a fantastic way to grow your company and not cause not have any kind of complications in terms of having funding. So this really gives you the ability to grow your company the way you want to grow it, rather than being beholden to different parties, or having a headache of potentially running around and looking for new funding. And so here are the three major criteria to win. You need a revolutionary tech, like we talked about, strong R&D team, and commercially viable technology. Because in the past, what happened is that they would fund a tech, and if it wasn't commercially viable, it wouldn't have that economic benefit. So if there's only Air Force application for a certain tech, it could still win funding, granted, but at the same time, they want something that will grow the economy and better society. And here are some of the dark sides of grants. They are hard to find. There are programs actually out there that you can pay people to look for grants for you. There's a low success rate per submission. Some grants have anywhere from like 5% to 10% success rate when you submit. The deadlines aren't necessarily so forgiving, and it's a process. It's not a, hey, let's apply for this grant tonight. It's a little bit longer. Submissions can range anything from 15 to 50 pages. And lastly, it's one of those things that might get pushed off, depending on the person who you are and what you do. It might not necessarily be the #1 priority. The keys to winning federal grants is to find multiple opportunities. As I said before, there's a lot of opportunities for wireless technologies. There's, again, the NSF is looking, AFWERX is looking, the Department of Energy is looking, and the DoD obviously is looking. So you have to know the system, you have to build a clear case and tell a story. Telling a story is critical. So essentially, if you have the best tech in the world, but you aren't able to convey it properly and aren't able to bring it to the table in the right manner, what happens is obviously it falls to the wayside. So you really want to make sure that you have kind of the sales side, almost in a way, taken care of. In addition to that, you want to engage in a multi-submission strategy, which is pretty similar to #1. But that being said, it's all about putting your tech in front of the right people at the right time. Timing is everything. For example, reason we're using a Zoom meeting right now and not a Skype meeting right now, timing. Skype was ahead of its time in terms of conference technology, but right now we're using Zoom because that is the front runner of the time. So what to expect in an initial engagement is we would usually have a kickoff call within 24 to 72 hours of signing the agreement. And usually what we expect from the people who work with us, as I said before, it's a partnership. Usually there's at least 60 to 80 hours of work put on the client side for their submission. And then 10 hours or less for every submission after the first one. And we, again, engage in that multiple submission strategy. And again, we try to put the right people, get in front of the right people at the right place at the right time. Lastly, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. So you guys can ask me any question. There is Ariel Farhan's contact information. You could schedule a call with him after this and kind of get it more granular, as I said before, into the various different funding mechanisms, what's right for you, what key timelines and dates are necessary, and how you can at least start the initial conversation. Because whether you work with us or not, this is one of those tools that it's good to have in your back pocket. It's good that it's on your radar and that you're aware, hey, there's a funding opportunity for me, and either, hey, I'm going to take advantage of it, or maybe I'm not going to take advantage of it. But either way, it's critical that you're aware and you know about it. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Feel free to just type them in, and I will answer them as they come. All right. If no one has any questions, we'll stop here, but I'll give you guys I'll be on for another 3-4 minutes. Okay, so we usually don't discuss the fee structures on the webinar, but yes, there is a retainer, and then there's also a success fee. The reason we do this is so that, again, the funding process is pretty rigorous and it is a partnership. So we found that the best results are yielded from people who are invested. Because again, the retainer usually is just for us to keep the lights on, but where the reason we're in business is because of the success fee. But would love to discuss it more over a call and get into specifics. Anyone else? All right. In that case, it's been nice speaking with you. Feel free. I'm going to send a follow-up email, and feel free to set up a call with Ariel. He can really delve into the opportunities available and give you a high-level kind of understanding of these fields. Have a good day, everyone.